Alright, hi, hello, and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to sit down with you and I am going to talk a little bit about my story with having POTS. And as you can tell, I am not in my normal filming setup. I wanted to sit down on the couch where I can have my coffee, where I can have Philly, where I can just kind of relax, just because I've never really sat down and told anybody the full, like, of course my close friends know about it and like they were with me going through it and stuff, but I never sat down with somebody and told them everything, like thing for thing and all that kind of stuff. So I want to sit down, be somewhere comfortable, just so I can relax. I'm kind of nervous while filming this video. I'm kind of getting a little anxious, but I feel like it's something I maybe need to get off my chest. I don't know if I'm going to post this video yet, but I think it's just something I need to sit down and do because it's hard. Oh, it was a hard time for me. So to start with POTS, I'm just going to read the definition on the internet of what kind of POTS is. I'm not very well at explaining this. So POTS is an abbreviation. It stands for Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome. I'm going to call it POTS though because it's a lot less invasive than that whole word. So it's a form of, oh god, see, I'm not good with these words. POTS is a form of dysautonomia that is estimated to impact between 1 million and 3 million Americans, a million more around the world. POTS is a form of orthostatic intolerance that is associated with the presence of excessive tachycardia and many other symptoms upon standing. Okay? So while the diagnostic criteria focus on the abnormal heart rate increase upon standing, POTS usually presents with symptoms much more complex than a simple increase in heart rate. I guess to begin my story, this started in July of 2016, so last summer, 2016 summer. It was late in the year when I first got it. Now, a few weeks leading up to this, I had my second round of HPV vaccinations. And if you don't know what that is, that's a vaccination to prevent somebody from getting HPV. A few months prior to that, oh, we're going back. Sorry if this video is all over the place. A few months prior to that, I was diagnosed with HPV and abnormal cells. My gynecologist said there was early studies showing that the HPV vaccination not only vaccinated and prevents you getting HPV, but it also helps to fight off existing HPV. So I decided to go ahead and get these vaccinations. Altogether there was 3 vaccinations I was supposed to get. Each shot, there were just shots in the arm, so each shot costed about $250 each. So it's not a cheap vaccination. It was not covered under the Canadian Health Plan, nor was it covered under my group benefit plan through work. So I had to pay all this out of pocket. I had gotten my first shot, and then you had to come back, I believe, after 3 months, and then again after 6 months, or maybe it was after 4 months and then 6 months. I can't remember the exact distances apart they were supposed to be. So I had my first one, I had no problems, everything was fine, and then I had my second one. It was beginning of July. I had my second shot. And everything seemed fine. Everything was okay. And I'm not 100% blaming this on the HPV shot because, of course, there's no proof that I got POTS from the HPV vaccination. But there are lots of studies showing that these vaccinations lead people to have being diagnosed with POTS. There's even class action lawsuits going on in certain countries around the world that are suing the certain brand for knowing about it and not advising. I got my second HPV shot beginning of July. Everything was fine and dandy. We moved on. We actually got Philly here on the Friday. Now I can't remember the exact date. I want to say the 19th of July. It was a Friday regardless. We picked up Philly. We went for a couple hour drive. Picked him up, brought him home. He was just a little puppy. We spent the weekend with him. It was great, of course. And then Monday morning I woke up and I was supposed to go into work. Of course, it was Monday. So I woke up Monday morning and I was sick. And of course I just assumed it was, I don't know, the flu or the flu. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to somebody's mind when they wake up throwing up and sick and dizzy and all that stuff. They just assume, of course, oh, I'm sick, I have the flu, let me call into work. Sick, I can't go into work today. And so I woke up and like I said, I was throwing up, I was dizzy, just a few different flu symptoms, I had thought. So got through the day, was still feeling sick by the end of the day, woke up Tuesday morning expecting to feel a little better, being able to go into work, and I wasn't. Okay, so it's going to be a couple day flu. It's not going to be the 24-hour stomach flu or something like that. Still sick Tuesday. Wednesday I woke up and still sick, and it wasn't getting any better. So I thought, well, maybe this is another episode of vertigo. So the summer before that, summer of 2015, I'm not sure, like I'm terrible at medical scientific terms, but you have these little crystals in your ear that keep your balance steady, and if one of those crystals goes loose, it causes a certain type of vertigo. So I had that the previous summer, so I thought, well, maybe it's that again. Symptoms were quite similar. I was dizzy and I was nauseous, and so I thought, maybe it's that again. Let me go get this treatment done, and last time it worked like that and now it's fine again. So I called the lady up that I went to last time, and I said, hey, I'm having kind of similar symptoms here. Can I come in and see you again and get this treatment done? And kind of like flip you upside down and put the crystal back in place in your ear. So I went to her, yeah, for sure, come in. I went to her, she sat me down, went through all the questions. Things were a little bit different. I wasn't responding like I was last time, so they test to see what ear the crystal went loose. She couldn't figure out what ear it was this time. I was also dizzy sitting up instead of coming down, which was opposite of last time. A lot of the time when you have this type of vertigo, I guess, you get dizzy when you are going down in a certain direction. So if it was on this side, I'd get dizzy going down this way. But I was dizzy both ways and sitting up, which was different, I guess. So I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, well, treatment didn't work, let me go back and do it again. So I went back a few days later, still sick, and did this treatment procedure again. Still wasn't working. So then I thought, okay, maybe it's not this, maybe it is something different this time. So I booked an appointment with my family doctor and went in to see him, and he said, okay, well, you know, and this is probably about, I can't remember if it's the same week or the next week, or no, before I saw my family doctor. I couldn't get in to see my family doctor until, I forget, a few days later after I had called. So I actually went, I was so sick, I went into a walk-in clinic, and I saw this lady, and she was very nice lady, and she said, well, it looks like some sort of vertigo, but not the crystal vertigo. So she had given me these pills, I think they're called like beta histamine or something, and they were supposed to help with the dizziness and help me feel better. So she gave me these, she said they should work within a few days. So I started taking them, nothing was working, still nothing was working. So then I got in to see my family doctor, and I told him what had happened, who I had seen. Told him the pills weren't working, and I was still sick, it wasn't getting any better. And he said, well, let's book you in with an ear, nose, and throat doctor, ENT doctor, specialist. And he can take a look in your ears and let you know if you have some sort of inner ear problem which causes vertigo, things like that, which he doesn't have the equipment to check, and he's not a specialist in that. So he sent me to this doctor to try and figure out what was going on. So he said I should be into this doctor within a week or two. It shouldn't take that long to get into the specialist. So thank God, cool. I went home. I heard from the specialist about a week and a half later. So now it's, I think, the beginning of August at this point. Hear from the specialist, and they say that I can get into them on September, I think it was September 27th was my appointment. And so that's like a month and a half, 2 months away. I mean, I can't work. I'm literally like bedridden. I can't get out of bed. And what am I supposed to do, right? So then, okay, I guess what can I do? I can't get in any sooner. I tried, called my family doctor, see if they could push it. They can't. So it's September 27th is my appointment. Couple weeks, not even, I think it was probably a week or so following that, I had woken up at night and to go to the bathroom. It was probably about 5 in the morning or so. I woke up and I passed out. I was going to the bathroom and just passed out. And we went to the emergency room at that point. And keep in mind, my family doctor had tested, they had done blood work for everything, like the urinary tract infection, all the kind of normal things. They checked to make sure nothing like that was going on, and everything came back normal. So I did not have a urinary tract infection. I did not have anything crazy going on with my blood, nothing in my urine sample, so I was good in that regard. So I went to the emergency room, and they standard have to do like your P.O.T.S test and then some blood work. I don't even think they did blood work. I think they just did a urine sample. And so I was in the emergency room, and I remember the doctor coming in while my urine test was sent off to get tested. The doctor came in and he said, okay, what I'm going to have you do is check your heart rate. So I'm going to have you, I was laying down at this time, so he said, I'm going to have you stand up and I want to see if what your heart rate's doing. And so I was laying down and my heart rate was at 60 something, 68 or something along those lines. And so of course to get standing up I have to sit up, of course, first, then to stand up. And so I went from about 68 laying down, and I sat up and it immediately spiked within milliseconds. Laying down 68 to sitting up, and it spiked to I think like 129 in like a literally split second. And so immediately he said, okay, whoa, I guess we won't stand you up here. It spiked that fast from just you sitting up, let's lay you back down. That was that. So then he left the room, came back a few hours later with my urine samples and says, oh, well, you have a urinary tract infection, so we'll give you some antibiotics, we'll send you home, and that's that. That's what you have. You just have a UTI. And I thought that was kind of weird. I said I was tested for a UTI by my family doctor and I did not have one, so it must have just happened. I don't think this is what causing it. He said, no, this is what's causing it. You're fine. Go home, take these antibiotics, and you'll be fine. They pretty much kicked me out the door of the hospital. I went home. I picked up the antibiotics. I took them. It did nothing. And then I just waited. I fainted a few more times up to my specialist appointment at the end of September. I couldn't work, of course. So I was on short-term disability through the government. And I didn't do anything. I laid in bed, waiting. I couldn't get up, I couldn't clean. I could walk to the bathroom, I could walk my dog to go to the bathroom outside. Other than the short little couple trips, I had to lay back down, otherwise I'd faint. So, and I was so dizzy when I was up and walking, and then standing up too fast, I had to be careful because if I stood up too fast, I would faint, things like that. So, leading up to my specialist, ear, nose, and throat specialist, was a lot. I couldn't do much. I finally got to the end of September. I finally had my specialist appointment. I went in and saw him, and he was such a great doctor. He really was. He immediately looked at my ears. He found nothing. So vertigo was crossed off the list by multiple different people, multiple different doctors. It was not vertigo. So he then sent me in for a MRI, and I got a rushed MRI. I had an MRI a few days later, and luckily nothing came up with that, so I didn't have like a brain tumor or MS, what they were thinking, maybe things like that. It was not coming up in my MRI. He says, I'm really not sure what it is. This is past my specialty, so I'm going to send you to a neuropath. I'm sorry if it's changed. I have to get up. My camera goes off on me every once in a while. So I'm going to send you to a neurologist who might know this a little bit better. So back to the waiting game. Still don't know what's going on. No idea. Nobody is helping me. Nobody's giving me any medication to help me. So again, I'm bedridden, waiting for another call. So I'm waiting, and at this point, I was waiting probably for about a month, and I still had not received a call from the neurologist office, the specialist office. Nothing I can do, I just wait. At this point, I was really confused, and I remember my mom had come over one morning, and we were just talking, and she said, oh, did you go in to get your third HPV vaccination? At this point, I had no idea. I had not put two and two together. I had not even thought about the HPV vaccination. Just nothing. So I said, no, I completely forgot about it. I don't think I want to go in and get a third one just because I'm so sick. And then it started to kind of like, I don't want to do it just in case it was something due to this vaccination that I had received. So I think I'm just going to wait it out. And so didn't really think anything more of it. My mom had gone home, and I can't remember if it was that day or maybe the next day or something. My mom had called me and she said, "Oh my God, I found this information about the HPV vaccination and something called P.O.T.S, Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia syndrome. I have found this thing. There's a bunch of class action lawsuits. I think she said in like Denmark and Japan, don't quote me on that. And then there's all these claims throughout different parts of the world that they had got this vaccination and then had gotten very sick with P.O.T.S. So I said, that's funny, you know, let me look into it. So I Googled the symptoms of P.O.T.S, and it literally like hit me down the line. So I'll go ahead and I'll read some of the symptoms of P.O.T.S. So some typical symptoms of P.O.T.S include dizziness or lightheadedness, which was constant for me. As soon as I sat up, I was dizzy. Fainting, I had fainted multiple times. Heart palpitations, which is when your heart, you can feel your heart racing, and I mean I could to an extent, like I could feel my heart racing. I guess I had never really put two and two together. I remember at that point I had remembered back from the ER when the doctor had said, oh wow, from sitting up and going, I always thought that was weird, but I just, like I said, never really put two and two together. I knew I was sick. Shaking and sweating. I guess sweating, but I had always had hot flashes and sweats and stuff, so I never really thought anything of that. But I found like my hands were always quite shaking and tingly, and I also felt very numbness in my fingertips, which was strange. Weakness and fatigue. Sleep, I mean, till this day, sleep has been, I think, my biggest one. I had some headaches, poor sleep. Sleep I was fine because I was so tired most of the time. Chest pain is one of them. I had never really had much chest pain. Feeling sick, I was nauseous a lot, and shortness of breath. But I wasn't doing much. So those are the main symptoms of P.O.T.S, and I had like 90%. And it all just clicked, and I started reading into it, and I said, oh my God, this must be what I have. So I immediately called my family doctor. I booked a doctor's appointment with my family doctor because I can't get into the specialist yet. So I sat down with my doctor and I said, I found this on the internet. I had these HPV vaccinations. Is there any way that this could be what I had? And he said, oh no, like there's definitely no way. You don't have P.O.T.S, like you're overreacting. He didn't say I'm overreacting, but basically said not to worry about it, okay? So I told him I'd been waiting for about a month and a half, and I still hadn't received a call from this neurologist. Is there any other neurologist that's faster to get into? At that point, he said, yes, I'm going to refer you to this other neurologist. He does not have a very good reputation in the city, but I agreed to go to him just because I didn't know what else to do, right? I just needed to see somebody to solve what is going on. So he had left the room. He was going to go grab a machine to take my blood pressure, I believe it was. And he had booked me in for a 24-hour blood pressure test, a 24-hour heart monitor test, and then to see this other neurologist that's faster to get into. He had gone to get just a quick blood pressure test, and he was gone, I think, for about 10-15 minutes at that point. He came back into the room, he sat down, and he said, okay, we could be looking at P.O.T.S. So he must have not known, I mean, it's not very common. He must have not known much about it. And when he left, he must have quickly like went online and like looked it up and realized, holy shit, like she does have a bunch of these symptoms, and looked into it a little bit more. So he came back and sat down and said, okay, we could be looking at P.O.T.S. He said it is very rare. He's like, I've never dealt with somebody that had this, and I've dealt many people in Regina have. So it's going to take a team of people pretty much to diagnose you. Bill, come here, buddy. So at that point, like I said, he already had referred me to this neurologist. He also got my blood pressure test and a heart monitor test booked, not booked, but the referral in. And then he also had booked me an appointment, not an appointment, but he referred me to a heart specialist, a cardiologist, as well as an internist, I believe they're called. And so cardiologist obviously looks at the heart, specializes in the heart. An internist is kind of a specialist that looks and diagnoses rare or weird things. So if you've ever seen like Dr. House, that's kind of like what it would be, I guess. So after that, I'm glad I think I could kind of put a name to it. I had not been diagnosed yet at that point, but in my head I kind of already knew that's what I had. So I had gone. First appointment I got into was to see this neurologist. And right away he goes, okay, so it's one or two things, he says. He says it's either you have vertigo, which I knew it was, and I had been crossed off the list by like 3 different people that it was not vertigo. I knew it was not vertigo at this point. It says you either have vertigo or you were having migraine problems. And I said, okay, well, vertigo does not, number one, even if those 3 other doctors or 3 other people were wrong, how does vertigo even explain half of the symptoms I'm having? Like, how does it explain the loss of feeling in my fingertips? How does it explain my increased heart rate? How does it explain fainting? I mean, it just doesn't explain half of my symptoms. And then migraines, I mean, yeah, I'm having little headaches, but they're not anywhere close to migraines. I mean, they're not anything to do with migraines. And again, those don't explain half of the symptoms. It doesn't make any sense. He says, well, I'm going to refer you for vertigo to not a chiropractor, a physiotherapist. I'm going to refer you to this physiotherapist for vertigo. And then I'm going to prescribe you a medication for migraines. So I said, look, I'm not taking these migraine medications. I know they're not migraines. He also said the symptoms for these migraine medications were dizziness, nausea, and fainting. Well, like, give me these pills to make me more sick? I mean, no, I wasn't having it. So I refused to take those medications he was trying to prescribe me, and I left. My next appointment was with the cardiologist. And there I went for a stress test and things like that. And then my next appointment was with the internist, who was Dr. Duffy, I saw. And thank God for Dr. Duffy. So I walked in, I sat down. He had looked at my file already. He sat down immediately and looked at me and said, you have P.O.T.S. As soon as I heard that, this relief just like lifted off my shoulders. I could finally put a name to this. And when I saw Dr. Duffy, it was in February. So from July until February, I was pretty much bedridden. I couldn't do much. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't drive. I couldn't walk through a grocery store to get groceries. I could hardly walk to the kitchen to make myself a sandwich. I mean, it was hard. So I saw Dr. Duffy, and he had diagnosed me officially with P.O.T.S. And some people do go on medication for P.O.T.S. Some things seem to help. There's no exact medication to give someone, but some people go on like blockers. What are they called? Beta blockers? No, that doesn't seem right. Blood pressure pills. I'm sorry, I can't think of what they're called, but like blood pressure pills. So some people go on those, but he said he didn't want to put me on anything because I was so young. I was 23 at the time. I guess just turned 24. I was 23 when I got sick. And he didn't want to put me on those because that's like a lifetime sentence. Like, if you start those, you're going to be on those forever. So he basically said to eat more salt, so start intaking more salt, and then try exercising. And those were my 2 lifesavers. So I got home and I started drinking a lot more water. I started putting salt on everything, so I'd cook my food with lots of salt to begin with, and then I would dump even more salt on top, and I would eat like that. And yes, it has made me gain weight. Yes, I have been very bloated because of the salt, but I feel a million times better. And then I started walking. I remember my first walk, I made it maybe about a minute or 2 minutes, and then I was so dizzy. And then each day I would do that, and it was so hard. I mean, I remember the first like month or so, and it was so hard. And each day I would go like a couple steps further, and but it helped. It really helped. And now I'm doing great. I can drive again. I can walk through a grocery store. I can go grocery shopping. I'm way better. I mean, I can just live my everyday life again, which is so nice. The only problem now I really have is sleeping. I need to sleep a lot still. So I still sleep from about 10 to 12 hours a day. And I need my naps pretty much every day. And I need to make sure I'm getting my sleep. And I still go through bad days. I still have bad days where I'm not doing good. I don't feel good. I feel sick. Things like that. But it's a lot better than it was for sure. Now I'm going on like anywhere from 45-minute walks to an hour and a half walks, and I'm okay. And yeah, this is going to be something I think that is going to follow me around for the rest of my life. I think I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life and really make sure how I'm eating, what I'm doing, that I'm moving and I'm active. And it's hard to think that. It's hard to think that there's always going to be this thing that's going to kind of just be right here. I'm better. I'm doing a lot better. I'm not bedridden anymore. And I mean, it was hard. Like, I was bedridden for God, like almost 8 months. And when I mean bedridden, I mean like I can't leave the house. I couldn't leave the house unless it was for like a doctor's appointment or something. I couldn't leave the house. I was so sick. And it really, really affected me and my mental state. And I'm still trying to get past that. But I'm pushing through. I'm getting better. I think I'm going to go start talking to somebody, get myself out there. I'm not a good talker. That's why I wanted to film this video. Telling people, making people aware. So if you are thinking about if you're younger, thinking about getting an HPV vaccination, just do your research. I'm not going to say don't do it, but do your research before you jump into getting an HPV vaccination. The last thing you want is to end up like this. I promise you it's not what you want. And yeah, thanks so much for watching my story of having POTS. And if you have any questions at all, if you've ever been in a situation like this and just want to talk about it, or if you think you maybe have something similar to what I have, definitely comment down below. I will make sure to try and answer every single comment. If there's something I would like to do that help other people that have been in my situation or in my situation, it's good to start a community, I think. And otherwise, yeah, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in my next video. Bye guys.